HighCast episode 25. This episode of HighCast is recorded in the studios of Highland FM. Go to highlandfm.org.au to learn how you can volunteer for this cool radio station, the cool radio station that I record in. It's fantastic. This episode is brought to you by Bright Spenders. Bright Spenders is a local business that helps you plan your spending. So this week I've been working on, I actually want to buy some podcasting equipment, a new computer, some new microphones, a new mixer so that I can produce HighCast on the road. So I've been working on planning my budgeting and my spending over the next month or so that I can allocate a certain amount of my income towards podcasting equipment. And what I've done is over every fortnight, money comes in, money goes out. A percentage of that is being allocated. So I know at approximately a month out from now, I will be able to spend some money on some stuff that I didn't have before. In the past, I would have just guessed that I would have had the money to do that. But now I have a really accurate overview of what I'm going to do with my money, which is really cool. So go to brightspenders.com if you have a plan and you want to live out that plan. Anthea will help you do it. She's fantastic. brightspenders.com. Live your dream. It's really cool. Today I am launching the next incarnation of HighCast. I'm turning HighCast into a social enterprise. I am looking for new sponsors of the program, and this just won't be any old sponsorship. What I'm proposing is that a percentage of all the revenues that come in via sponsorships will go into supporting volunteers in the Highlands. So if you are a business owner that provides local services, get in contact. Go to highcast.com.au. Get in contact with me because I'm looking for small sponsorships of which I can then use some of the revenue to go to supporting volunteers. I think it's a fantastic initiative. Hopefully you do too. And it's a really good segue into our guest today. Our guest today is Debbie Smith. Debbie is a Highlands local and manager of Southern Highlands Meals on Wheels. Southern Highlands Meals on Wheels uses volunteers. It's a large user of volunteers. So tell us about Meals on Wheels.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't even welcome. Just tell me stuff.
Just straight into it.
How rude am I?
I guess with the volunteers, that is a good segue because volunteers are the lifeblood of our organisation. Meals on Wheels really started originally from volunteers, just wanting to help those that were unable to provide their own meals. And to this day, we actually have over 120 volunteers that help us to. That
is a lot of volunteers.
It is a lot of volunteers, and they are, as I say, fantastic, able to help out in lots of different ways. We've got our delivering of meals to the clients themselves is a really valued and important part of volunteering, but we also do our work in our kitchens as well. And just recently we've been able to work with volunteers who might not fit into some of those traditional boxes, but we've got a web designer, we've got all sorts of different people, photographers, and
that's the new thought, isn't it? I'm an SES volunteer. Okay. Traditionally, the model for volunteering was a one size fits all. You turn up, you do the thing that we need you to do. But now, from the sounds of it, you're saying, hey, you can volunteer in a number of ways. It can be short-term, it can be long-term. Tell us your skills. We'll see if it fits out with us.
Absolutely. And we are just seeing so many qualified, skilled people able to really help us to continue our organisation and to take it on to another level.
And I've got this theory. It's not really, it's just me being a mindless fool, to be honest. But it's people like me are looking for other pursuits. So I could pursue a career relentlessly, or I can pursue a career and then I can look at people like yourself at Meals on Wheels and say, hey, how can I get value into my life through other pursuits, and I feel like you're tapping into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's about that sort of purpose-driven, that there's a reason for what we're doing. So I think that has really helped. So, yeah, we've got an amazing local photographer who actually
Give him a plug. Can we?
Yes.
Just, yeah.
So Paul Harmon, who is an amazing
Sorry,
photographer.
Paul, you didn't know you'd be talked
That's
about
right.
me.
We'll talk you up, Paul. Came and wanted to help in our kitchen.
Yeah.
Has been, doing dishes and chopping veg. And I just happened to notice that his email address sort of, related to a business, had a look and saw that it was a photography business, and asked if he might help us with taking food photography shots.
That's
and
really
I
cool.
must say, so much better than my little iPhone in the dark.
So is this where the video came from? Because this is how I discovered Well, actually, there's two ways to discover Meals on Wheels, but the main way was this amazing video.
Yeah, so again, that really came through New South Wales Meals on Wheels. So we have a state board as well, but similar idea that there are some videographers who wanted to volunteer their time and to help out Meals on Wheels on a sort of state level, and we were fortunate enough to get them to come down to our service and to be able to do amazing video work with us. So it's really
and for the people listening who haven't seen it, you probably played the video 10,000 times more than people listening, but I'll assume there's people out there that haven't seen it. It starts off as a drone shot.
Yes.
And goes all the way down through to Debbie in the front door in Mossvale, and then it goes from there. And it was really innovative. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fantastic working with some real professionals.
Hang on.
No
you say it like real professionals, like you're not a professional.
No, not you. I'm talking about us.
No, well, no. It's like every time I have a guest in the studio here, I'm like, it's complete amateur hour. I barely know what I'm doing. Actually, if you're a sponsor, I really know what I'm doing. Any potential sponsor, I'm a professional. I've been doing this for my entire life. You talked about purpose. What is the purpose of Meals on Wheels?
Okay, so I mean, I guess locally, it really originated.
Yeah, let's talk locally.
Yeah, it really originated. A local dentist in Mossvale saw the need, whilst treating people in their mouth, to see what had been, people had been eating and the nutrition issues. Yeah. And so really worked out that actually we need to meet some of these medical issues from a nutrition base first before they actually develop into, greater issues.
That's fantastic. I just need to start recording these episodes, video recording, because my face then was like, really? That is one of, I've heard some pretty cool stories so far on this podcast. That's one of the best. So a dentist, and this is the reason why I started this stupid show, is a dentist looks in people's mouths, and over a period of time he's like, hey, there is a deficiency here, a nutritional deficiency here. The best way to address that nutritional deficiency is to provide people free meals. Is that right?
That's it. So
how cool is that? And
then, a number of organisations got on board to help deliver those meals and make those meals. This was back early 70s, late 60s. So it sort of has grown and changed within that time.
So you're not inferring that Meals on Wheels started in the Southern Highlands?
No.
Okay.
But our local branch of started and then got affiliated with the greater Meals on Wheels sort of history of Meals on Wheels.
Who's the dentist?
So Ken Pogson.
Is Ken still with us, or is Ken?
He is. He came to our AGM and told us all the stories of how it started and what was involved. And then so there was a number of different local Meals on Wheels that then came together, and we now do the whole of the Highlands. So we can now deliver right across the Highlands, not just Mossvale centric.
And is it based on nutrition now, or is it based on necessity for to feed people, or both?
Both, really. All our meals are nutritionally balanced, so it does help with the nutrition. And a big part of what we do is to help people stay in their homes longer, so can give them the independence. Often there can be a fear that if they start services, they might lose their independence, but actually we're able to help them remain independent and remain in their homes as long as possible by providing that nutritional meal that, again, helps with their health, helps with dealing with, some of the challenges of ageing or other issues.
Yeah, I had, just looking through my notes, I had Carissa Wells, who is the General Manager of Southern Highlands Hospice, or Community Hospice. And that was one of the messages that she had is, people need to stay in their homes as long as possible. And once that's not possible, that's where the hospice comes in. But I feel like the two of you are providing it's going to sound terrible, the end-to-end service.
Yeah.
And you're enabling people to enjoy the comforts of their own home for as long as possible.
Absolutely. So that's our core, is really helping those, say, over 65. But we're also able to help anyone who just needs some assistance with nutrition, whether they're going through some health issues. We just recently had a lady who'd come out of hospital, broken both wrists, got home, tried to cook her first meal redecorated her whole kitchen, gave us a ring and said, could you help me? I really didn't think this through. I actually can't prepare meals, but I know I need the good nutrition to build my strength to recover from, operations.
See, I always thought, and this is my naivety, I always thought that Meals on Wheels was for people who, for whatever reason, couldn't afford to feed themselves or were homeless or whatever it was, but you're saying it's a much more holistic service than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are funded by government for our administration side of the operation. Our meals are actually a user pay system, so they are affordable, but it is a user pay system.
And this again is why I started a podcast. HighCast.com HighCast.com.au. Even if you just want to complain, say, Dave, you're an idiot. Because I didn't know that.
No, most people aren't aware, and also it has changed over the years as to what's available, how it's delivered, and what happens. So, back in the past there were cauldrons of hot soup that were delivered out the boot of a car.
That's the vision I have. Like Meals on Wheels, I get this vision of inner city, and you cook the soup, you turn up at the back of a van. And people who are in unfortunate circumstances turn up for a meal. That's unfortunately what I envisage. But what I'm hearing is that it's a service, as opposed to a charity.
Yeah, I mean it really does both, in that we are often the only source of nutritious meals for some people.
Yep.
Others, we might complement what they're currently doing.
Yep.
So we find, particularly even with some of our volunteers, we really started working with them to say, you are amazing and volunteering, giving up your time. And we find that a lot of volunteers aren't just involved in one service, they're involved in numerous services.
Yes,
and
I know.
then, getting home 7-8 o'clock after meetings or different, volunteer efforts, and are having tea and toast because they're pretty exhausted. And obviously that's not very nutritious, doesn't keep them going for very long. So then they start to give up some of their volunteering and then stay home to cook. And we're saying, no, keep volunteering, keep up that social interaction, again, that purpose of being part of community, and let us cook the meal for you.
And I've talked about myself already a couple of times. I will do it very quickly. That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to turn HighCast into a social enterprise that supports volunteers, because as volunteers, there's the benefits that you get out of training. There's the reward that you get from helping others, but apart from that, the reward and recognition is pretty minimal. There's no tax breaks or anything like that. So it's great to hear that you're supporting your volunteers by saying, hey, look, you give us your time, there's a meal in it for you as well, and a nutritious meal made by fellow volunteers, so made with love.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it is that idea of recognising, and I think there's been a lot of study into particularly recognising that importance of social interaction and being part of community and all those efforts that we're saying, maintain that interaction and let us have the meal organised for you so that you're still maintaining that nutrition and able to keep going for as long as you possibly can in your activities. So
120 volunteers run out of Mossvale. How many, have you already said it, how many meals do you provide on a day, a week kind of?
Yeah, so over a week it's between sort of 500 and 600 meals. We do like 28,000 meals a year. So we go right across the Highlands. From Yarrambull down to Wingelow, out to Robbo and out to Canyon Lee, so right across. And we have sort of different runs that the volunteers do. So obviously we don't have one volunteer who drives to Wingelow and then backs up to Hilltop to drop a meal off. We sort of have different areas that they do.
What are you investing in drones?
Yeah, well, I really like that idea of the drone delivery, except what we offer is actually more than just that meal.
It's the personal,
interaction. Yeah. So that social interaction, sometimes we might be the only people that those clients see of a day, you know, that we might be the only visitors, but also a bit of well-being monitoring.
Yeah.
Just checking in, how you going, how's things. We find that's really puts a lot of family members at ease. If they maybe live in Sydney, their, you know, parents are here, we're able to just keep an eye on them, you know, and it's not an officious, you know, let's do a health check on the doorstep or anything,
No.
but just how you going, how's things. If we notice some changes, we'll report that back to family, and it just helps monitor what's happening.
And 200 years ago, or 150, or even 100 years ago, that's the norm. That's community, like people who know each other, have grown up together, and like, hey Joe, how you going over the back fence, kind of thing. And it's a lot of that's lost.
Yeah,
these days for a number of reasons. And it's in a way it's unfortunate that that's you have to do that through Meals on Wheels, but it's cool.
It's a great, and again, that's where our volunteers get that reward, that it's more than just here's your delivery, but actually, how are you today? What's happening? You know, those sort of connections make it that real purpose valued approach. But like you say, it's something that has become a need that wouldn't have been, say, 100 years ago. You'd always check in with your neighbour, you'd know what was going on. Now we're pretty insular within our homes, that not much connections.
So am I hearing it right, that Meals on Wheels is more than just food?
Yeah, absolutely. Our tagline is more than a meal.
Damn it,
more than just a meal.
I was gonna sell it for you. I'll sell it to you rather. Yeah, there's a tagline in there.
Yeah.
So it's more than a meal.
Yeah. And I guess some of what we would see as competitors.
Doesn't say it on your jacket. No, you got to put it on your jacket.
That's it. All on all the promo stuff.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we will get it on the jacket too. It does. I guess some of our competitors who might do meals, or even we talk about.
Do you have a competitor?
People, well, you know, there are other organisations that will deliver meals.
Are you competing, or are you all in this one big joyous club that just so happens to do slightly different things?
There are definitely some for-profits out there that are looking to do things. Well, I mean, even something like Light and Easy, or those sorts of people that are delivering meals to the door, but usually in bulk, usually not nutritiously aimed at the age group that we're mainly looking at. And we're finding that, you know, there's studies done on if you're eating some of those other, or even supermarket meals, the nutrition is not great in those.
Sure.
You know, high in sodium, high in sugars, and just not those fresh meals that, you know, you really need to be able to keep going. To have it every now and then, not a problem, but if that's what your staple diet is, it has some ramifications.
And I think, you know, given your slogan is more than a meal, I feel like people crave the human interaction.
Absolutely.
And you can't. That's pretty hard to sell. That's pretty hard to provide that for a for-profit service.
Yes.
And it's particularly in this day and age of social media, of you know, not increased work hours, but increased working hour pressure. The ability to provide a human service is in increased demand. And
I mean, that's why we say that volunteers are the lifeblood of our organisation, because without our volunteers who have that capacity to be able to spend a little time to deliver, to chat, to feedback what's happening, that's what really helps to keep it real, keep it going, keep those connections up. So, yeah. And
it was just coincidence that I decided to launch the social enterprise today. I didn't think that, I didn't think that we'd be talking so much about volunteers, but it is fitting, because in the Wingecarribee, or the Highlands, there are so many people who give up their time to make a difference. And, you know, making a difference is such a hard thing to do, and you're actually giving people the opportunity to make a difference. Yeah, and I think going back to what you were saying before about, say, traditionally volunteers were, this is our box, you need to fit into it. If you can't fit into it, go find somewhere else to volunteer sort of idea. But actually really tailoring it to what, we obviously have some restrictions. If they want to deliver meals, it can't be done at midnight. You know? Of course. The clients need to be awake. But it's working in with the volunteers as to what their availability is. We've just recently had a number of volunteers who've moved to the area, sort of semi-retiring, looking at
I've always wanted to volunteer with Meals on Wheels. They come in and they say, actually, it's going to be a great way for us to get to know the area too, because you're delivering to homes that you wouldn't go to normally, you know, off the beaten track.
I unfortunately have done it in a different way. I was saying I'm an SES volunteer, and I go to accidents, and I'm like, how do I get there? Oh yeah, I remember that. So I've gone from one side of the Windsor Caribbean to another attending accidents, which is terrible. But I should have volunteered for Meals on Wheels. It would have been a much more pleasant experience, I think. So how did you get involved?
I guess I've had always a community mindset and experience with jobs.
See, what guests don't realise is that the most intriguing part of any podcast is actually your story.
Nervous.
The pressure's on now. So you've always had this sense of community. Since when? We grew up in Western Sydney, but very connected to our community, very involved in sport, in church, in activities that were, I guess, grounding and part of things. And I'm one of these people that sort of I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. See, I'm the same. I'm just never going to grow up, and then I can. Then I've always got a chance to find out what I'm going to be.
When I work it out, then I'll be a grown up, and that'll be okay.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll just never be grown ups together.
That's right. And it actually used to bother me that I didn't know what I wanted to be.
Same here, yeah.
And I kind of thought, I'm missing my calling. I'm missing my purpose.
But do you? And I talked about this last week, and I articulated it really, really poorly. Do you have like a vague direction? And so you don't know what you want to be, but do you know that it's got to meet certain criteria? Like you have to make a difference, tick.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess for me, I've kind of boiled it down now to it's about purpose. So if there's
this is a scary conversation because I've come to the same conclusion.
If there's a good purpose to something, I'll do anything. I'll scrub the floors. I'll do the toilet. You know, I'll do whatever's needed for the purpose, rather than the particular action of the job.
Do you have your own purpose?
Purpose, I guess it is to make a difference, is to be part of community, to see and support those around me where I can.
So you grew up in Western Sydney, always involved. You're a person who doesn't quite know what you want to do, but it's got to be community based, making a difference, maybe scrubbing some floors in there if it's possible. Tell us what was the steps that then got you to Meals on Wheels in Mossvale?
Yeah,
please.
You look at one of those things and you kind of go, it all came together over the years of different things, different areas. I did some travelling and left Western Sydney, went out and did sort of a around the world trip, ended up in the UK working in a conference centre cooking, as you do, and learnt lots of skills in the cooking place. Ended up coming back to the Highlands to assist with managing a motel. Got married while I was in the UK, so husband and I came back and we were managing a motel on site. Tough gig, 24/7 kind of work.
Yeah, hospitality is a hell of a drug.
Yeah, and I think even within that, did what we did. There was I guess probably more of like a monetary purpose to what we were doing than a real value purpose. And started a family, so eased back on the workload, but stayed quite involved in, playgroups and sport and different activities in that. And my youngest was going back to school, and I thought, I probably need to look at some work. And I will say that Meals on Wheels intrigued me. I was interested in that. It was also right across the road from my kids' school and about 5 minutes from my house.
So,
and I thought,
so part convenience,
like
part purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's for everyone in this modern age. Very rarely does anyone really know what they want to do. Very rarely if people know what they want to do they find the perfect job. And so we've all got to make this compromised, complicated decision around how are we going to fulfill ourselves intellectually and purposefully and pay the mortgage at the same time. And it is really hard. And people don't talk about that. Or maybe I'm just not listening, but I feel like that conversation is missing. You see Instagram, like, I'm living my dream.
Yeah.
Bullshit, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think there comes that comparison where you're thinking, my life doesn't look like theirs.
Yeah.
And I heard a great comment where, we're basing our worst day on everyone else's highlights. It's the Instagram or the social media, it's their highlight reel of everything that's going amazing, and we're living this out going, it doesn't look like that. And I think, again, for me, it's like, well, what can I do in this, where I'm at with what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And can I make what I'm doing enjoyable and purposed, and maybe even fit in different things? So Meals on Wheels was just the perfect fit for me because of the food background, also volunteers, and then for a real purpose of helping clients. So it really ticked all the boxes.
So do you feel like you're the luckiest person in the world?
I feel like it's pretty good at the moment. It
is,
it's, and I travel 2 minutes to work, so it's and perfect.
That's part of it too. I was listening to another podcast, and it was I forget the profession of the gentleman, a researcher of some description, and he was telling a story about how when they used to interview people 50 years ago, kids 50 years ago, what do you want to be? And it was teachers and doctors and train drivers and whatever. Now they ask the same question, and it's, I want to be famous.
Yeah.
And we as adults or our parents are not telling the story that, hey, you know what, life is more than being famous. It is about the complexity of the compromised and trying your hardest to figure it out. There's got to be some satisfaction in figuring out.
Yeah, and I think, coming back to that too, is that I think it's really important that our identity is not wrapped up in what we do, but actually who we are.
I did that for a long time. I used to work in the media, and I was a guy who worked in the media, and I worked for a particular media company, and that was a cool media company, and I associated myself with that cool media company. And it's not till 15 years later that I'm like, oh God, was I such an idiot who did that?
And it's tough though, because again, what do you want to be? Who are you? What do you do?
So what did you want to be when you were younger?
Oh, I could never quite work out. A teacher or a nurse was sort of where I was at.
God, so that's a bit stereotypical, isn't it?
It is very much. I took a year off. 30 years, a long time later.
How did you do that when you were only 21?
Yeah, that's right. A long time later, and still don't know what I want to be. But
okay, so so I asked a question about, do you feel like you have? So I explained this really poorly. So the way I describe it is, at the end of the road, I've got make a difference. And the road is really, really wide. I could go anywhere from make a difference, pursuing just a full corporate career on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I could make a difference doing just volunteering and earn no money. But somewhere I negotiate my way through that. Do you have, so you said make a difference as well. Is there anything at the end, like Prime Minister of Australia or?
No, not Prime Minister of Australia, definitely. But no, it's quite vague, which, is just to be, I think, getting reward from what you're doing. I think to me that is important, or knowing what you're doing has a purpose. So whilst I had young children at home, I did a lot of cleaning to help pay the bills, and cleaning can be really unrewarding because, you go back the next day and it's dirty again.
That's why my wife and I don't clean.
Yeah.
It's just, you just add another piece to the pile. It'll still be there tomorrow.
But for me, it was doing those smaller jobs meant I could be home with the kids in the day. My hubby could have the kids at night while I did some cleaning. So it meant that for us, we were able to have that, quality time with the children and look at that. And so to me, again, it was the purpose at the end of what I was doing rather than what I was doing. So that to me is, I guess, knowing that what I'm doing has a good purpose behind it and to me that is helping people or is, rewarding that way.
So when you're leading at Meals on Wheels, is that something that you try to embody? Like, I'm a person with purpose, or who believes in the purpose? I know you're volunteering. help me lead you in the direction of this organisation?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, when we've got paid staff and volunteers, and we're I'm constantly challenged by the volunteers because I think, oh, I'm getting paid and I do this. They're not getting paid, and they know that. Like they know the purpose. They get that, and quite often it's actually probably the other way around where they're reminding us of that purpose.
That's
and
a
really
really interesting conundrum. Again, at the SES volunteer, I feel that happens the same. We as a volunteer, I'm giving my time for free. As a paid employee, you're here to help me, aren't you? So that's got to be a challenge in itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever managing volunteers, there's always it's different to managing paid staff.
In what ways?
I guess there's that. I find that
this is the difficult question.
Yeah, it's a difficult question to articulate. I guess with paid staff, you can have some more. This is what you need to do to fulfill the job.
Yeah.
With volunteers, it's much more about what is going to assist you and what's going to be fulfilling for you, and can we mix that in with what we're currently doing.
I feel like a volunteer can walk away at any time, and there's no skin off their nose. Whereas an employee, well, they're getting paid, so there's the reward is more tangent. And it is far more difficult to not to motivate an employee. Rather, it's far more difficult to, for want of a better word, chastise a volunteer, because it's like, well, you're giving up your time.
Yeah.
You know, I know you're trying to do your best here. It wasn't that great, but
and it's that sort of I guess something when I started locally here with Meals on Wheels. There was this sort of professionalising of the volunteer. And so we've got an amazing team of volunteers, some of whom have been volunteering for 40 odd years with Meals on Wheels. So here I come in and say, you need to do this, this and this. And they're like, really? That's interesting. You've been here 5 minutes and we've been here 40 years. And I guess with Meals on Wheels, we're under really stringent food safety. So we're under what's called the Vulnerable Peoples Act for food safety. So there are some
Hang on, there's an act about food safety for vulnerable... Wow.
So that is for sort of hospitals, for aged care facilities and for Meals on Wheels. Again, because who we're feeding, our meals end up with, are the over 65s, they're much more vulnerable. So all sorts of different rules that aren't applied across all food producers. So it's
So I think I saw in your video that your kitchen complies to all the standards that any commercial kitchen would apply to. So that's got to be pretty difficult for you to meet all of the... No, it's not difficult, but to meet all those food safety standards. You got a volunteer who comes in, well, this is how I clean my kitchen at home. But no, unfortunately, you got to use a higher grade disinfectant or whatever it might be that the rules require you to meet.
Yeah, I mean, even just basic things of we are hats and gloves kitchen. You cannot go in the kitchen without
how hard is it to use gloves?
Yeah, gloves when you're not used to it. It's we've had a couple of chefs who are volunteering, which is fantastic.
Can't use gloves.
And again, just need to put your gloves on. Need to put your gloves on, and they're, experienced, run their own restaurants for years, and you're just saying, oh yeah, it's gloves and hats and aprons, and for us it's temperature checks, and because we cook everything on a cook chill basis, so we're not serving hot food, we serve food to be reheated. Again, that's a different way as well. But also different technology involved. So we have our combination ovens, which are fantastic and cook everything.
What is a combination oven?
Oh, so they're really cool. You can boil an egg in an oven.
What?
Yep. We cook our rice.
I've been doing it wrong all these years.
That's right. So it's a steamer, and
it's
got full facility to do all sorts.
I'm just about to renovate my house. Are they expensive?
And yeah. They are.
Anyone out there who sells combination ovens, you can sponsor HighCast at highcast.com.au.
So yeah, they're great for doing all sorts of different things, which helps. So we steam all our vegetables now. We used to boil them up on the saucepan. Again, a lot of nutrition disappears when you're boiling away. Equally, it's hard for volunteers to lift these big saucepans.
Yeah, okay. Is that the truth that steaming keeps the nutrition?
Yeah, I think even when you look at, if you boil, say, your carrots.
What about
and your
microwaves? I got this irrational fear of microwaves. Like, it just seems like such an unnatural way to cook. I stick it in this box, and it comes out a minute later like lava. Maybe it's not so erratic. It just seems crazy.
Again, it's how does it work? It doesn't get, it's not like a heating element on an oven or a stovetop. How does it all work is my query with
look,
microwaves.
I'll botch this, but the microwaves are essentially a wave of light. So the things from this, it's harnessing the power of the sun in a box. So in every kitchen around Australia, there is a box that harnesses the power of the sun. Sorry, this is off track from what you were talking about, combination ovens. So like you've got all of these volunteers who come in, and you say to them, cook an egg in the oven. How does that go down?
Yeah, it's very much, I'm not sure how that works. How do we do it? What do we do? So we obviously have paid chefs in the kitchen as well, because to keep up with all these standards.
So what did you say, 600 a week?
Yeah, 600 meals a week.
Yeah, okay.
Going out.
So and are you Monday to Friday?
So we deliver.
So it's almost 100 meals a day if it's Monday to Friday.
Yeah, so we deliver Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. We offer very flexible, tailored packages for the clients. So if you have Meals on Wheels, you don't necessarily have to have 7 meals a week. You can, but you can have 1 meal a week.
Kind of thing?
Yeah, so we do a main meal, so, a full vegetables, protein and carbs in that. We also do soups and salads and sandwiches, desserts, and even homemade biscuit boxes, which really came out of one of our clients had said that they no longer could invite people around for a cuppa. And we said, why is that? Oh, well, Mum brought me up to say that if you had guests, you couldn't serve store-bought biscuits, and I can't bake anymore, so therefore I don't have people around anymore.
I can have no one at my house.
I was like, oh.
You just can't have biscuits.
It's such a generational thing where, so their solution was, we just won't invite people around, and we're going,
that's terrible.
That social interaction is really important. How about we make some bickies for you if that's what's needed? So things like that where the clients are helping to lead what we do is really important for us too, in that if, the cauldron of soup that used to go out wouldn't pass any of the food safety anymore, but also wouldn't necessarily pass people's developed food palates.
So how do you meet people's like what's on the menu? What's the piece to the resist? Oh God, I can't even speak. What's the good stuff?
I guess we have 28 different meals available at any time. So there's a good variety of different meals. So we do a winter menu and a summer menu. Again, middle of summer, you're not necessarily wanting, the Guinness casserole
is it gazpacho, which is the cold
soup? Yeah, cold soup works. Yeah.
Hang on, she's prepped.
I am. I have some of our meals on here.
Go on,
so
give us
we
the
do
brief.
some things like pumpkin and ricotta lasagna, beef bourguignon.
My wife, if you're listening, Liz, we're getting Meals on Wheels.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Chicken and leek pie. We do our roast pork and roast beef with the Yorkshire puddings.
Oh, we're definitely getting Meals on Wheels. What are you doing tonight? What's on the menu Friday? Because Friday nights for me at the Gorman household is takeaway and ice cream night.
Oh, nice.
What have you got on Friday evenings?
We've got a creamy fish pie for tonight.
Well, that's not going to pass with the juniors, I don't think.
Oh, it's pretty yummy because it's got mashed potato on top, so actually, they think it's good.
Do you cater for my son is one of the generation of children that are allergic to everything? Do you cater for the I was going to call him a rude name, but I shouldn't call my son for people like my son who are like dairy, wheat, nuts, the sun,
everything.
The air.
We do. We tailor the meals to be what the client needs.
Wow.
Again, because we can cook. We have the full production kitchen.
So
we
it's
can
not
tailor
like,
it.
and sorry to interrupt. It's not like you're going sandwiches, steak. It is Mrs. Smith. This is Mrs. Smith's, and we're prepping for Mrs. Smith, or is it more of a production line than that?
A little bit of both. So we do a production line of the majority of our meals, but for clients who have either dietary issues or tailored even right down to clients
what else you got on there?
Well, I was going to say clients who don't like peas or don't like a certain vegetable. We find again, often as people are aging, their appetite wanes, and if they get a meal that has, the dreaded peas or whatever turns them off the meal. They actually won't eat the whole meal. So we say, let us know if if everyone else is getting peas that day, we'll give you corn, and it means they eat the whole meal. So it's tailored down to the different vegetables.
That's pretty cool.
I'd have to say the Brussels sprouts are probably the least favourite.
Really? I love Brussels sprouts.
I'm not. My son loves Brussels sprouts.
Wow. How
He's
did you do
decided
that?
Eggs, baked beans, and Brussels sprouts
That actually
are
sounds pretty
really good food for certain other other efforts. So
actually,
boys.
Scrambled eggs and baked beans together is awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for a good scrambled eggs and baked beans. And so, what would you say is the favourite meal?
The roasts are a big favourite.
Can't beat a roast though. That's
and I think again, if you're on your own or just a couple, sometimes it's harder to make that for themselves.
Yeah, you can't get like a fist-sized roast, can you? Or you can, but it takes. I would probably destroy it in the oven, or in the microwave. Harnessing the power of the sun, and because I went down to the Mittagong RSL the other day, and I'm like, this reminds me of when I was a kid, because it's the roast. It felt like my childhood, where everyone would go out, and the RSL was a thing. It was a thing to do, to get chips and a roast with gravy. That was a thing to do 20 years ago.
Yeah, we're finding with our clients, and I guess we deliver to. We've got a couple of 100-year-old clients and a couple of 65-year-old clients, and there's a generation within that. So
yeah, of course.
I guess what we'd say the younger clients coming through, what typically call the baby boomers or that, have experienced a whole lot of different food.
Don't tell my dad that. You're a baby boomer, Dad. You're going to get Meals on Wheels soon. I'm not looking after you anymore.
That's it. But they're obviously much more
Thai
open
and Indian
to
and
different
Chinese.
meals. Yeah.
Do you have any a culturally diverse background, people who want culturally specific type meals?
Yeah, probably not so much in our Southern Highlands Meals on Wheels. I know that we work a lot with Liverpool and Campbelltown, and they have specific areas. We don't have that as much at this stage here locally,
and
but it will.
Without talking about them too much, are they doing sort of Indian cuisine or Vietnamese cuisine specifically for a demographic within their area?
Yeah, they certainly can do that as well. Again, because it's about tailoring it to what is needed, and that rather than just off the shelf. Because again, for us, we have a production kitchen, which we're really proud of. Not every Meals on Wheels is able to have that.
If you see it in the video, it's like, oh, look at my kitchen, and she does the full model thing. Like, no, she does.
It's pretty cool. You were talking before about keeping up with the food safety is a challenge, but keeping up with just purchasing the equipment is also a real challenge for us. Our funding is...
So you said funding's administration
only.
So what, you've however many staff, it just covers that. So what about like power, all of that stuff? Is that covered? Or?
Part of that, yes. So we get given a certain amount, and that's as you've got to use that and make that work. Anything else, you've got to sort of bring it in yourself. So our food has to cover its own costs, and then we apply for lots of grants because I was going to say, how it goes. So, we're very thankful to Wingecarry Shire Council.
Give them a shout. That's what this program's about.
Gave us some funding to get a new dishwasher, because again, it's not just about it's easier with a dishwasher, but the food safety requirements have us that we have to have a dishwasher.
Really?
So we have to, sanitize at 82 degrees. And
that's a little bit crazy. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. And I mean, again,
so
we're really...
You're selling things, though, not just giving it away. So you have to,
Yeah. So we really know that all our food going out is of the highest safety qualities as well. So,
and in a way, like, I know it's terrible that you have to... not terrible, but it's more difficult when you have to rely on the generosity of volunteers and grants and things like that. But it also makes you more innovative.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have this bucket of money that comes from government. And, I'm a government employee. There is, like any other business, there are things that can be done more effectively. But when you're running an organisation like yours... you've got to look for every advantage you can take and look for ways of doing things better all the time. So you have to innovate.
Absolutely. So great segue. Thanks.
Yes. It's not amateur hour. It's not complete amateur hour. Sponsor me, HighCast.com.au. Support volunteers in the Winter Caravan. Thanks for the segue back.
Yes. So we've actually started a social enterprise from our catering arm. So
okay. What are you doing?
We cater for all different sorts of events.
That is great.
So, yeah. So for us, it's sort of a two-way idea, is that letting people know that the food that we serve is really good quality, because, again, people have this preconceived idea of a cauldron of soup out the back of a van that might not be fantastic, whereas actually our food is high quality, great food at an affordable rate. So we've sort of, I guess, looked at the local area with lots of catering companies that are high end. We're really there to help, I guess, organisations themselves who probably in the past would have done their own catering, but again, due to food safety, it gets stricter and harder to do some of your own things. So we work with people like Disability Trust, who might do their own training, and then we are able to provide them with some food, with schools, with councils, Red Cross, lots of different organisations.
Well, one of the things I was thinking of doing with HighCast was, I said to you offline, I'd like to purchase movie tickets and things like that to give to volunteers. But I was also thinking, down the track, I'd like to host events. So I know where I'll be going
for your catering.
For the catering, and that's part of the idea, is that it all stays within the community and we all benefit together. So how did you come up with that idea? Like, just sitting around one day near the sun in a box, or I'm gonna patent that now, or coin the phrase "sun in a box."
Sun in a box.
Yeah, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
I guess it really was looking at our kitchen that we cook 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And so it's not utilised the other days. But again, we've got this fantastic, amazing equipment. And so we'd done a few catering jobs for things like the Community Services Expo, where all the different community services groups come in, and we made some, Devonshire tea, some scones and things for that. And everyone were like, "Oh, did you guys make this? That's really good." What do you expect our food to be? It was sort of this whole idea of, we know it's great. We know it's really good. Even when our volunteers come in, some of them are a little bit like, "Oh, so it's fresh veg?" And you're like, "What did you think we did?"
Just get the peas out of the packet, put it in the sun box. There it is.
So it's just, again, what people's idea of what we do and what we actually do. So now within that, it sort of has grown and is a registered business of its own. So Community Catering Southern Highlands.
I am super. So give that a plug for sure.
Yeah, Community Catering Southern Highlands. So again, we can tailor events. We go right from, your sandwiches and fruit platters up to 3-course meals.
And why would you? And I don't want to cop flack for this, but why would you go anywhere else? Like, it seems like the right thing to do. And, you're not going to give people lobster. So if you've got the taste that people, if you need a high-end catering service, but if you're doing, like you said, not that it's low end, but a requirement for just nice, simple food.
That's it. Quality, affordable. And you know that in helping...
much better marketing. Quality, affordable. And I'm like, just stuff, mate.
The stuff that you recognise as well.
Yeah.
But you know that when you cater with us, it's actually going back. All the proceeds go back straight into Meals on Wheels to help facilitate those who need assistance with meals as well. So
and I feel like that is not the business of the future, because mutuals have been doing it for a long time, but there is this growing desire within communities like ours to spend locally for what you spend to have a direct, tangible benefit for community. So you've got IMB Bank, for example, BDCU Alliance Bank that you can see put some money in and a percentage of it goes back. There's a real movement for that kind of...
I think that is that social enterprise of, if we need to outsource for something, if we know that actually whilst we're using a certain company, it goes back into something good, then you sort of feel better about it and you're happier to do that. So we've found that particularly with the catering of those organisations, as I said, who would have used to have done it themselves, but now, there's lots of rules around preparing food in your own home and bringing it in and all that sort of stuff. And equally, some of these organisations are a little bit resource poor, time poor. So looking at outsourcing that, but knowing that it goes to a good cause and that it's not going to break the bank.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. And I didn't expect that to be part of this conversation. I'm really pleased that came up. So you 120 volunteers, 600 meals a week, a blend of paid and volunteer staff, social enterprise on the side, probably getting bigger as we speak.
Yeah.
What's the future of Meals on Wheels in the Highlands?
I guess really just looking to not divert from our core business of supporting people in the homes, but looking at ways that we can do what we currently do and help more people. So we've are NDIS registered as well,
okay,
so
that's
disability. And equally we have what we call our retail meals as well. So same meals, but able to be purchased by anybody. So yes, if you really don't want to cook tonight, you can get some Meals on Wheels.
I wish this was a live show and I'd be like, Liz, are you listening? I'll have, what was it? The fish pie?
Yeah, creamy fish pie.
I will have the creamy fish pie with extra potato on top, please.
Yeah, so looking
Can you
at
get cheese on top of that too and grilled?
You have to have the cheese on top.
Cheese on top with grilled. Yeah, okay, awesome. We were going to just get barbecued chicken. Sounds really boring now. Sorry, you were talking. I was rudely interrupting.
So the future is really looking at establishing that and letting people know that the meals are available. There's a lot of I guess stigma or preconceived ideas as what Meals on Wheels means.
And we had that at the very beginning. I'm glad that I'm not glad that I sounded like an idiot, but glad that you've been able to clarify that.
Well, and you certainly don't sound like an idiot. You sound like the majority of the population.
You're all idiots, people. So don't tell everyone that.
But it is that idea that, the food is good quality food, that it is accessible. There is a funded rate or a non-funded rate. So it's not this sort of, I don't know if I am eligible. We can work that through with you, through My Aged Care and through assessments there. But ultimately we can help is the answer.
So how does everyone find out about Meals on Wheels?
Okay, so mealssouthernhighlands.org.au is our
all one
website.
Word?
All one word,
mealssouthernhighlands.org.au. And what about the catering? Is that the same?
Yeah, so communitycatering.org.au.
Awesome. So get down, visit Debbie and the team. This has been a pretty awesome conversation. I've really enjoyed this.
Good.
And I said it before, and I think I said it last week. It's so silly that I have to put a microphone in front of people to have really meaningful conversations. But it every time I do, I always come away like I bounce around for the remainder of the afternoon because I don't know, for want of a better word, my faith in humanity is restored.
I think it's just interesting the layers in any organisation, any person, as to what's actually going on and what's around. So it's a great opportunity.
Your talk about purpose. I feel like the volunteers at Meals on Wheels have got a really good leader who in yourself. Because if you can articulate what you've articulated to me today, then that demonstrates that what is it? More than just a meal.
More than just a meal.
So you're living that. It's really fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on today. This has been HighCast episode 25 with Debbie Smith. Check out Meals on Wheels for the creamy fish pie. I may or may not be having some of that tonight. Check out Brightspenders, brightspenders.com. Anthea has been a fantastic supporter of this program. She was on. I should find out what episode it was. If you haven't heard the episode with Anthea, go back through the archives. Episode 16. Check out episode 16 with Anthea. If you are interested in supporting HighCast, hit me up, highcast.com.au. Hit me up on Facebook. It is a great coincidence that we talked about volunteering today because I really I think the volunteer is a fantastic thing to do, and if I can help that through this program, through your sponsorship, that will be fantastic. Next time we have a local video producer. Who could that be? See you then.